So Tron Ares was directed by Joaquin Roning and it stars Jared Leto, Greta Lee, Evan Peters, Jodie Turner-Smith, Gillian Anderson, and Jeff Bridges. And this movie, taking place in the Tron universe, a program known as Ares is brought into our world to kind of be a soldier, but when he decides to rebel against it, things go down, and we have a new Tron movie. So this was a movie that, admittedly, I was not looking forward to. I thought the trailers themselves looked okay at best. Visually, it looked amazing. And if I'm being honest, I never saw the Tron movies until just recently. I watched them for the first time just to prepare for this movie, and I think visually they're impressive, but I didn't really care for much else outside the visuals. Also, I was not looking forward to seeing another movie starring Jared Leto. Why does Hollywood keep casting Jared Leto? I have no idea. But anyway, that's beside the point. But I still wanted to give this movie a chance, see it on the biggest screen possible, and if I'm being honest, yeah, this movie is about what I expected. This movie is visually impressive, and the music in it is incredible. Everything else outside of that, I found to be kind of lackluster. Let's start off with the things I do like in this movie. Once again, visually, it's impressive. There are some moments in this movie where it's like, I'm amazed by how they're doing this. So if you see this movie at all in a theater, I would recommend seeing it on the biggest screen possible, IMAX, maybe IMAX 3D even. I think this movie is really enhanced by the visuals in this movie. Also, Nine Inch Nails' music. Incredible. Honestly, I would try to listen to the soundtrack because this music is incredible. I think this has one of the best soundtracks of the year. We've had some really good scores this year with Sinners, One Battle After Another, and honestly, Tron Ares. I didn't expect Tron Ares to be as good as those two. And as far as the performances go, there are some that are at least okay. Greta Lee, I thought, was probably the most interesting character. I thought her character was the most interesting out of all of them. I did like her role in the movie. Jodie Turner-Smith is also very good as this like other program. I thought she was pretty good, and it kind of felt like she matched what her character was supposed to be doing. Evan Peters is kind of fun as one of the main villains of the movie. Also, despite how I feel about Jared Leto, he's not terrible in this movie. That's the best I can say about Jared Leto. He's not awful in this movie. That's probably the best thing I can really say about it. There are some interesting ideas about artificial intelligence in this movie, which I feel like there are some movies that have done that better in the past year. Honestly, Mission Impossible, I felt, did that a whole lot better, but there are definitely some interesting ideas in this movie, but pretty much any time that the visuals are not on screen, or they're not in the foreground and they're more in the background, I found it to be kind of lackluster. Nothing about this movie, ironically, feels human enough. This is a movie about where the main character, he decides he doesn't want to be a program in a system, but he wants to be more human. And I find it annoying that Jared Leto is that character. But that's beside the point. I felt like the emotional moments in this movie just don't really hit as well as I think they should have. Like, Greta Lee's is probably the closest that it gets to, actually feeling human, like there's actual humans in it. Well, you know what I mean, like there's actual human emotion in those movies. But I felt like everything else surrounding it just did not feel human enough. And also, I found a lot of the humor to be very, very lackluster. Honestly, there were times where I watched this movie where the humor was, when it was intentionally trying to be funny, it was boring. But when it was unintentionally funny, that's when I felt like the movie actually made me laugh. That's kind of bad. Also, there was a moment where I swore I saw the phrase Morbius, and I'm like, you are trying to make me hate this, aren't you? I realized Jared Leto's the producer on this movie, too. I should not be surprised by that. I felt like when it wasn't taking itself seriously, it was kind of funny at times. But there are times where it's like, it is supposed to be funny, and I'm like groaning. It's like, are you kidding me? But also, again, whenever there's no visuals in the foreground, and it's mostly in the background, I kind of found it to be lackluster. Even like the stuff involving the actual program Tron and even Jeff Bridges, I felt was just kind of, not necessarily unnecessary, but more kind of, yeah, I would say it's unnecessary. I felt like his appearance didn't really add too much to the movie. I felt like Jeff Bridges was also just not very good in the movie, unfortunately. I love Jeff Bridges, but I felt like his version of Kevin Flynn in this movie is probably the least interesting of all the characters. It's really more of an extended cameo. And also, Hassan Minaj, Arturo Castro are the ones who are, they're comedians at least, but their humor is just flat in this movie. Also, there are several gaps in the storyline. I'm like, I feel like for a movie like this, it should at least mention a few things that I'm like, okay, you could have mentioned this is how you feel about this character and such. But, like, there's several gaps with, like, Ares and such, who is the main character of the movie. And I'm thinking, you could mention these things about him that would make his character a little bit more interesting. Like, you do kind of see, like, one moment where he's kind of, like, figuring some things out. I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. But there's nothing about his personality that is very interesting. He's just kind of boring. He's just kind of... He's a program, I guess, which kind of makes sense for, like, the beginning of the movie. But it's like, if you want me to think this character wants to be human, he has to try to be a little bit more human than his, you know, actual counterpart. It's like, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, like, why his character is just not very human enough. And I guess that's the best way I can describe this movie. It's a movie that wants to be a real movie, and yet I just feel no emotion from this movie whatsoever. Even though visually it's impressive, even though the music is incredible, again, if you can see this on a big screen, definitely see it. But at the same time, I feel like even though there are good performances, I felt like the characters were just not that well written. The humor is off. It can be unintentionally funny at times. There are gaps in the storyline where I felt like I could have at least explored the characters a little bit more, and also whenever the visuals are in the background instead of the foreground, that's kind of when it's kind of boring to me. I do like seeing the old Tron visuals in this movie, which I thought was really cool. And also, ironically, this movie just doesn't feel human enough, and I wish this movie was at least a little bit more caring. Can I see this movie getting like a massive cult following, kind of like the first two Tron movies? Sure. And can I see people going out of the kind of seeing this movie just for the visuals and the spectacle of it all? Sure. Personally, I kind of wanted a little bit more from this, and there are definitely some movies out there where it's like it's more visually impressive than the story itself, and I kind of still kind of get myself involved with the story a little bit more than I did with this movie. So I kind of say this movie's fine. You could watch it, have a good time with it, but you're not going to get much from it. I'll give Tron Ares 2 out of 4 stars. Stream it. So, what is an underrated movie franchise in your opinion? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat, and stay safe.